This module provides guidance on what GTIN to use for your product and packaging levels. Confusion has been created from requests from distributors to GTIN 14s when traditionally manufacturers have been using GTIN 13s. The GTIN is a unique number used to identify any type of item upon which there is a need to retrieve predefined information. It's important to note that there isn't a central database of all this information, so you need to share these GTINs with your customers for them to enter into their system so that when the barcode is scanned, it looks up that GTIN in the database and retrieves the predefined information about that product. The GTIN is created from a GS1 company prefix unique to your company. It allows you to create different types of GS1 identifiers, such as GTINs and global model numbers for your basic UDIDIs. There are separate modules on the GS1 company prefix and the basic UDIDI. Here is an example of a GTIN 13 and its structure, showing it is made up of a GS1 company prefix, which can vary in length, normally between 7 and 9 digits long. There's an item reference element, which changes from one product type to another, and finally the check digit calculated from the rest of the numbers. In retail, the GTIN 13 is captured in an EAN 13 barcode, which you can see on the screen here. Within regulated healthcare, there is now a requirement for the GTIN to be captured alongside production information, so we need to choose a different barcode type. There is another module on which barcode to choose. Here we can see the structure again with different length GS1 company prefixes. The shorter the prefix, the longer the item reference element. Different length prefixes provide different numbering capacities. The shorter the prefix, the more GTINs that can be created from it. In the EU medical device regulations and for the UDI regulations in other markets, the UDI should be assigned to the device itself or its packaging. High levels of packaging should have their own UDI. This means that different GTINs should be assigned to each packaging level. However, logistics units such as pallets or a box of several different items that is used to ship the goods in is a logistics unit and does not need its own GTIN. Here we have a representation of the GTIN 13 being used at different packaging levels. In this example, a different GTIN is used for the same product at different packaging levels. This is perfectly acceptable and is a common practice in the retail industry. Now that regulated healthcare products are using barcodes that have a 14-digit GTIN field, we're seeing GTIN 14s being used to identify the higher packaging levels. GTIN 14s are created from GTIN 13s and GTIN 12s. They are created from a GTIN 13 by adding a number between 1 and 8 to the start of the GTIN 13 and then recalculating the check digit to create a GTIN 14. Now you have two different additional numbers created from the GTIN 13. This is an example of allocating GTIN 13s for retail product packaging. A different GTIN 13 for each packaging level. As the lowest level is being scanned in retail, a GTIN 13 must be assigned and captured in an EN 13 barcode. This is an example of allocating GTIN 13s and GTIN 14s for retail product packaging. A GTIN 13 at the lowest level to be scanned in retail, captured in the EN 13 barcode, and GTIN 14s created from the GTIN 13 at the higher levels. Most commonly, the GTIN 14s are captured in an ITF 14 barcode. This is an example of allocating GTIN 13s for a non-retail product, different GTIN 13s at every level. This is an example of allocating GTIN 13s and GTIN 14s for a non-retail product, a GTIN 13 for the unit of use and GTIN 14s created from the GTIN 13 at the higher levels. When capturing a GTIN 12 or a GTIN 13, or indeed, in some rare cases, a GTIN 8, in a GS1 128 barcode or a GS1 data matrix, leading zeros are required. The same goes for regulated databases, as the GTIN field is always a fixed length of 14 digits. I suggest that best practice is to enter your GTINs with the leading zeros in your internal systems, because when it comes to it, you'll need this format for the regulator's systems. Here on the left, you can see a GTIN 14 captured in GS1 128 barcode. On the right, a GTIN 13 with a leading zero is captured in a GS1 data matrix.